Okay, you guys, let's get started on our end pieces for our bracelet. Okay, I have a size 11 beading needle threaded with 6-pound Fireline in black, or smoke is what they call it. So we're going to make the base of our bracelet. So start out by picking up 2 size 8 Delicas and drop them down to the tail. Leave yourself 4 or 5 inches that you can sew back into the piece when we're done. Come back up through the first bead that you picked up, pull, and they'll sit side by side like that. Now, because this is our first stitch, we're going to reinforce it by going back down through the second bead, up through the first bead again, and back down through the second bead. Now we're ready to proceed. So you're coming out the bottom of this bead, right here. We're going to pick up a seed bead, a size 8 Delica, and go into the top of that bead and pull. It'll sit side by side and then come back up through the bead that you just added. And do that again. And keep doing this until you have 7 Delicas sitting side by side. Okay, that's 4. That's 5. Once you get the first row, well, actually, once you get the first 2 rows done, it's a piece of cake from there. But getting those first 2 done can be a little bit difficult if you're new to bead weaving. But it's one of those things that, practice makes perfect. Reinforcing the last stitch. Okay, now we're ready to start row 2. Now I have 7 Delicas sitting side by side. Okay. So now, because it's our first stitch on this row, we pick up 2 Delicas. On your first stitch on ladder stitch, you always pick up 2. Now, the thread that crosses over these beads and goes through the next one are called thread bridges. When you have your 2 Delicas on, skip the first thread bridge and go under the second thread bridge. Just put your needle right under that thread like that and pull. Now they're going to sit kind of cattywamped like that. What you want to do now is you go back up through the second bead in, come up through that, down through that first bead. What that's going to do is straighten it up and make him sit right, and then back up through the second bead. Now when we pull, this is how it looks. Those next 2 beads sit right on top of those 2 beads. But because we skipped that first thread bridge, we're turning this into like a triangle shape. Okay, so now it's just regular beading. Pick up your next bead, go under your next thread bridge, pull, come back up through the same bead. Okay, again, pick up a Delica, go under the next thread bridge and pull, and go back up through the same bead. Okay, do it again. Under the thread bridge, with 1 bead, pull, come back up through that same bead. Okay, we got 1 more to put on this row, so grab another bead, go under your last thread bridge and pull, and then come back up through that same bead. Now, what can happen when you're doing this is if for some reason when you go back up through that bead, you come out from under the thread bridge that you used to attach the beads with, they'll come off. So you do have to be careful about that. Now here's what we have so far. We have 2 rows. I'm at an end bead here, so that means that I have to pick up 2. So pick up 2 beads, go to the second thread bridge and go under it and pull. Go up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and then back up through the second bead to pull those into place. Okay? Now here we have 3 more to add on this row. So pick up a bead, go under the thread bridge, and back up through the bead. Okay? Pick up a bead, go under the next thread bridge. Yeah. Pull, go back up through the same bead. And last one on this row, under the thread bridge and back up through that bead. Okay, turn it around. This is what you should have. You should have 3 rows. Okay, now because it's the first stitch in this row, we need 2 beads. Go under the second thread bridge and pull. Go up through the first bead, up through the second bead and down through the first bead, just that one bead. Don't go through others or you'll be in the wrong place. Down through that bead and back up through the second one to pull it into place. Okay, pick up another bead, go under the next thread bridge and pull. Oops. And then back up through that same bead. And last one on this row, pick up a bead, go under the last thread bridge, pull, and go back up through that bead. Okay, now this is what we have. Turn it around. We're on the first stitch on this row, so pick up 2 beads, skip the first thread bridge and go to the second one and go under, pull, go up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and back up through the second bead. Okay, pick up a bead. We're at our last thread bridge on this row, so go under your thread bridge and pull and back up through that same bead. Okay, turn it around. This is what we've got. Pick up 2 beads. Now this is our last row, so there's only 1 thread bridge that you can go to, so skip the first one, go through the second one and pull. Go up through the first bead, down the second bead, and then back up through that bead. Okay, now we are ready to put our wire protector on. Okay, so what we do, we're coming out of, there are 2 beads at the top and we're coming out of one of them. So from here, we pick up a wire guardian, go through one leg of your wire guardian and pull it down. and then come around and go down the other leg of your wire guardian, being extremely careful to make sure you get that thread in that channel. Hold it between your fingers to do that. Then come back down through the other bead that sits on that top row. Okay, this is what we have. I'm going to reinforce this. So I'm going to go back up through that bead on that side and pull. Come through the wire guardian and the other top bead. Put that between your fingers and pull so that you know you get that in the where it goes. Come down through that second bead. Oh, we're already coming down through that bead. Turn it over, reinforce it again. Up through the bead on the other side. Back down through the wire guardian and that bead. Hold it between your fingers to make sure your thread goes into the channel. Okay, now we're secure. So what we want to do is we want to end off this thread, and then we're going to put our needle on this thread, and we're going to weave it in. Okay, so I'm just going to weave back and forth through beads to make sure that I get my thread tied off very securely. Okay, now the way to do that is change directions at least 3 times. And what I mean by that is just turn your thread around and start sewing in the other direction. And actually, I always make a circle, all the way around them all. I'm going to go to the next row. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to come up through another bead on the next row. And I'm going to sew in a circle. I'm going to go up through the bead next to it. Turn around and go back down through that same bead that we were in. I'm going to go up on the next bead on the other side. Now, y'all, I'm just going through one bead at a time, because if you like skip a bead and then you happen not to catch the very next bead and you skip over it, if you do that, your thread will show. Okay, so you don't want to do that. You want to be very careful and not let your thread show. Okay. I go through 2 or 3 more beads, and then I'm going to cut this off, and we'll be done with this side. Okay, I'm going to cut the wire off here. Take this off my needle. I'm going to thread my needle with the tail thread and do exactly the same thing, weaving in and out of the beads before I cut my thread. All right, guys, I'm going to do all of that off screen, and I'll be back when I have both ends done, and I'll show you how to add wire and how to put the strands on. Okay, so I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, guys, I'm back, and it occurred to me that I didn't show you how to tie off your thread, so let me do that. I'm coming out of this bead right here, the top. I'm going to go down 2 rows. Okay, now I'm coming out right here out of this bead right here. And what I'm going to do is just wind around inside these beads. See here, I'm coming out here, so I'm going to go through in the opposite direction the bead that sits next to it. It's coming out right here. I'm coming up through this one. Okay, now I'm just going to go in a circle back down through the bead I just came out of and up through the one that we went through. And I caught the tail thread, of course. Okay. And just keep winding around until you are absolutely sure that that thread is well tied off. And if you change directions about 3 times, um, your thread should be just fine. This is my 3rd time to change directions. And now I'm just going to work down so that I'm coming out one of the bottom beads so I can snip my thread off. And then I'm going to put this needle on the tail thread and do the same thing. So get that done and come on back and we'll start beading the bracelet. Okay guys, back again. Now, what I do is I put a new piece of thread on my needle and I make it as long as I can work with it. So you do yours in a length that you know you can work with because you can always tie on more thread if you have to. So the way you add new thread is exactly the same way that you end thread. You find a bead that you want to go through, leave yourself enough of a tail to sew in, and then go through a bead and just keep weaving back and forth through your beads, just like we did to tie it off to finish it. Okay, and with this one you want to do at least 3 turns, meaning change directions a minimum of 3 times. I usually do 4 just because, you know, this is the part of the bracelet that actually holds it together. So I want to make sure that I get this thread in there really secure. So I'm just going to keep weaving back and forth and then we're going to be ready to start adding strands. Okay, that's 2. My beads are starting to get a little tight because I've gone through so many of them so many times. That's why I like to use 8s on these. First of all, if you use 11s to make your end pieces for this kind of bracelet, your beads will sit too close together. You need to use at least an 8 to do this, and you certainly feel free to use a 6 even if you want to. It's just a matter of what do you want to do. Okay, I've almost got it, y'all. I got to turn around one more time, and then this will be secure, and we can start actually making our bracelet, the rest of our bracelet. Be careful not to get your thread wrapped around something that you don't want it wrapped around. Like that time I had this one wrapped around the wire guardian. So I had to pull it loose and, you know, do that. Now, I want to work myself down to come out one of the end beads on the bottom row. And it does not matter which side you come out on. However your thread seems to naturally go to get to that point is perfectly fine. So you decide that and then get yourself to a starting place while I do the same. Okay. I'm coming out this end. Okay. You want to be coming out an end. Now I'm going to pick up, and I'm just going to pick up some seed beads, some 11-0 seed beads, and you guys do it in whatever count you want to. This is just going to be a staggered bracelet. So once you have some on your thread, then you're going to pick up a chip bead. Well, that one's interesting. It's right down through the middle of it. Okay, pull that down. Pick up some more seed beads. Just look at the seed beads you have on there and determine if it's how far apart you want your stones, and stagger your beads so that it doesn't look like you were doing something purposeful. And like I said, I'm just going to grab the beads as I come up on them. It doesn't matter. There's no order because I'm putting all of these in there. And that's what it's going to start to look like. But we're going to have multiple, well, we're going to have 7 rows of this. I just want to get to the end so I can show you how to turn around. And then I'll go off and finish stringing, and you can do the same. And then we'll meet back after I get that done. Now here is where you have to determine how long your bracelet's going to be. Now take into consideration jump rings and your clasp, because those add to your length. And like I said, I'm not putting these on in any order whatsoever. Just stringing them on. And you can see this takes some time because, you know, bead weaving, these teeny tiny little beads just take time to handle. Just keep stringing them on there. Now I'm going to stop real quick and measure this to see how much of this length I need. Now what you need to do when you're measuring is take everything into consideration. Take the length of your end pieces and take into consideration the jump rings are going to add a little bit here. Now we're going to use pretty small jump rings. I think I have some 5mm ones. So I'm just going to get this as close as I can to see what we have now. Now, I don't want to know in millimeters. I don't know my wrist size in millimeters. Okay, we're pretty much at 7 inches already. So I'm going to finish this off right now. The problem with this bracelet is it doesn't let you use enough beads. You know, can't get as many on there as you want to. Now, when you get to the other side, come up through an end bead. Okay, just like we did when we started out all this stuff. Now, I'm going to check the length again. See about where we are. Make sure I've got enough length for my wrist. And that's going to come out to be right about 7.5. So that is plenty. Okay, so I came up through this bead. Now, I'm just going to go back down through the very next bead. Okay, see, I'm coming out of this one. I came back, or I went into this one. Now I'm turning around and coming out of this one. And what we're going to do is just make that second strand the same length as this. Okay, make sure you get those pulled tight. And now the other thing that you have to be real careful of is making sure that you go into the same bead on this side that you're coming out of on this side. Okay, you want them to go back and forth just like this, but you want them side by side. So I'm going to keep going, and you do the same if you're making it with me, and I'll be back when I get them all strung, and we'll finish off our thread and put our clasp on. Okay? All right, I'll see you in a few. Okay, guys. Well, I have it put together, as you can see here, and you can see there's no pattern whatsoever to these beads. They're just strung on here randomly. So I'm going to put the clasp on, and then this will be completed. I'm going to tell you, I think I might have gotten it a little short. But if I did, it's all right. I'll just sell it. No problem. Oops. Just dropped the whole shebang. Oh, and I meant to tell y'all too, if you get into a situation where you need to go back through beads and you went through but your wire got crossed up or whatever, sometimes what I do, it's just the easiest way to do it, even though it seems awful, is I take my needle off the thread and back it out by just pulling the thread through. So you can always do that if you have something you need to fix. Well, I cannot hang on to anything, I swear. Last few days, y'all, I have been dropping stuff left and right. I don't know what's going on. You see? It's like I can't keep a grip. Maybe it's these pliers. I don't like those pliers anyway. I go back to my dirty, trusty, handy dandies. These are the pliers I love. All right. Nope, not the pliers. It's me. Y'all, I have a lot of nerve damage in my back and neck from about 12 years ago. I worked at the hospital and I worked on a surgical floor. And I had a surgery patient who had had a knee replacement and she needed to go to the bathroom. So I was helping her do that. And then she thought she was going to fall, even though she wasn't. She reached out and grabbed me around the neck and blew out some discs in my neck. This is actually kind of comical. I mean, I either got to laugh or cry and don't want to cry. So, Lord. Don't that just aggravate you to death when you just are having one of those days and no matter what you do, it seems like nothing works right. Oh my goodness. Yay. All right. Well, there we go. Our bracelet is complete. And I don't know if I can get it on or not. I'm going to see. It needed to be about 2 beads longer. I could get it on, but I'm not going to keep pushing it. All right, guys. Well, there you go. These are so cute to me. You can do this with anything. It doesn't have to be chip beads. I mean, I've made one of these with crystal bicones. I've made one with crystal cube beads. So you can use the material of your choice. And you can also do a necklace this way, which I've been thinking about doing. And I might do that. And it'll be done the same way. I mean, you're going to do your end pieces the same way and everything. So you could even do like a partial necklace where, it was only in the front like that. And it's going to do that if you turn it into a necklace. They're not going to lay like a bracelet. But you could do that and then finish it with chain if you wanted to. Possibilities are limitless, as you know. Okay, y'all. Well, that's it for this video. I got to think about some things and see what we're going to do next. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.